Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 31, Doctor Strange, brought to us from the mind of Dr. Issues' daughter.
Yeah. I wish I had more to it than that, but I don't.
No, we literally just, hey, who do you want us to do next? And she just yells out, Doctor Strange. Okay. And now she's going to listen to this and she's going to hate you.
What? Why?
Well, didn't you say she had a bad reaction when she found out that...
Oh, okay. I'll explain. My daughter actually is very outgoing, very sociable. And yet, when you point out something that she has done, be it positive or negative, she kind of freaks out. It's as if she took the traits of the incredible social ability from my wife and the shy, don't talk about me and don't give me any credit for anything nature from myself. So there you go.
The best and worst of both worlds. And she's adorable as all get out.
Yes, yes.
So this week is Doctor Strange. So thank you, Doc, for your daughter and for her wonderful suggestion. Before we get started, as always, you can check out all of our shows on our website, capesonthecouch.live, on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And we ask that you please like and subscribe, leave a positive rating and review. And at the end of the show, we will read some ratings or read some reviews from our happy and satisfied listeners. So we appreciate all of you that listen and continue to interact with us and keep it coming. So next week, real fast, there's not going to be an episode. We're going to take a 1 week break. But then the following week, we're going to come back in early December and we're going to do the Hulk. And that's going to be our crossover episode with the wonderful folks over at Popcorn Psychology. So please give them a listen and a plug as well. They are three therapists and they review blockbuster films, and they talk about the psychology and very similar in nature to what we do, but they just do individual films. So we're going to go on their show and we're going to talk about the Incredible Hulk movie, the one with Edward Norton that is sort of the bastard stepchild of the rest of the MCU. And then they're going to come on our show and just talk about the Hulk in general as a character. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
And then after that, we're going to do the Kingpin because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is coming out in mid-December. And the Kingpin is one of the primary villains of that story and that film. And also because Daredevil season 3 just came out, and God, Vincent D'Onofrio just kicked 17 kinds of ass in that role. Like he personifies the Kingpin. He's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I really hope we bowl you over with that one. Because you get it.
Yeah.
King.
I saw Kingpin in theaters, like the Kingpin movie, the one about the one-handed bowler with Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
I saw it with my friend Phil. We were literally the only two people in the entire theater for the movie.
And that's a shame because that's a very underrated movie.
It is, but I think we saw it like 2 or 3 weeks after it had come out, and it was like a matinee performance, so there's just nobody there. But yes, it's a very funny movie. But that we're not going to be talking about, Randy Quaid and Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray bowling. We're going to be talking about Wilson Fisk and how he has made the lives of Spider-Man and Daredevil and numerous other characters absolutely miserable. And then after Kingpin, we're going to do Mr. Miracle because we've been on kind of a Marvel kick lately. So, and plus with the holidays around that period of time, plus he's green and red. So those are Christmas colors.
Yeah.
So it just kind of all works out. Plus there's the amazing Tom King run that's going on DC right now. So we can absolutely delve into some of that. But for right now, we're going to get into the one, the only Dr. Stephen Strange. So Dr. Strange, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko in Strange Tales number 110, July 1963. There's another Ditko character, and Ditko and Lee. It's Lee and Ditko and Lee and Kirby, man. They were amazing back in the day.
Yeah, and once again, with anything that Ditko touches, it goes to the weird. Or the strange. Okay.
I was like, you ruined that joke.
Oh, well.
You botched it like the doctor botched his surgery. Bum, bum, ba-dum, pew. And again, we're not going to get into all of the weeds because Doctor Strange has been around for an extended period of time. And as a result, he's been in numerous storylines and arcs, but we're going to do our best to just hit some of the major points. And also, if you've seen the movie, the Doctor Strange movie, I think they do a good job of updating it, but also portraying the character and the growth that he goes through, and also some trippy ass visuals. They really did just a amazing job in portraying in live action what Ditko drew, and Ditko and all the incredible artists that have worked on Doctor Strange over the past 50 plus years. It's just amazing work. So Stephen Strange is an arrogant surgeon whose hands are severely damaged in a car accident, and he seeks a cure for his tremors. He finds the Ancient One in the Himalayas, and he saves the Ancient One from an attack by the Ancient One's former student, Baron Mordo. And in return, the Ancient One agrees to teach Strange about the mystic arts.
The one thing I'm going to say about this is the idea that he developed these hand tremors after this car accident and all that. I'm not exactly sure neurologically where that would be, because if his hands were shaking, that would imply that other parts were shaking, and the way the nerve roots work, it's just a little weird. Or he'd probably have a lot of pain or burning sensations, or they'd be completely numb. But who cares? It's comics.
Yeah. So he returns to New York and he takes up residence in the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is on Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village. And he has an assistant, Wong, who is apparently descended from a long bloodline of servants and assistants to the Sorcerer Supreme. So among many of the villains that he's fought over the years, he fought Dormammu, Satanish, Vishanti. These are all powerful beings of great mystical powers. At one point, he passed a test against death itself, and he was essentially given immortal life, plus a little thing on his forehead that pops up if he comes very close to dying. Yep. So he knows that he's in major trouble. He worked as a consultant to some law enforcement officials on magical matters, and then he met a young woman named Clea, who turns out to be Dormammu's niece. So she is related to some really, really evil dudes, and they end up falling in love. So Doctor Strange creates the Defenders alongside Namor and the Hulk. Never mind the whole Jessica Jones, Daredevil, etc. The original Defenders were Doctor Strange, Namor, and the Hulk.
Which you gotta admit, that is an eclectic bunch.
Yes, it absolutely is. And that's also one of the reasons why the team didn't really last that long, because particularly with Namor and the Hulk, any team with either one of those is not going to be stable for very long. Namor in particular does not play well with others.
Nope.
Imperious Rex. So the Defenders battled the Undying Ones and a bunch of other foes. So in the late 1980s, the Sanctum Sanctorum was destroyed, and along with it, numerous artifacts and spell books, which left Doctor Strange much less powerful than he had been. So he ends up losing the title of Sorcerer Supreme after he refused to fight the Vishanti, and he resorts to using chaos magic, which is usually one of the things that Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, uses. But in an effort to expand his tropes of magical spells that he can use, since he doesn't have all the spells that he had, plus he's no longer the Sorcerer Supreme, which is apparently a very big deal. It means you are like the numero uno top dog sorcerer magic wielder on the planet, then you need to have that title. And if you're not willing to, you have to be a fighting champion.
Oh, wow. I was thinking in the background, I could picture Doctor Strange entering an arena and saying, "I am the magical champion of the world."
And then Jack Tunney comes out and tells Doctor Strange, "You haven't defended your title for 30 days. I'm going to suspend you." Bobby Heenan gets on the mic and starts cracking jokes, and Gorilla's over there, "Will you stop it?" And I'm sorry. I just went off on a tangent there.
Good times.
So, good times, humanoids. So he becomes one of the founders of the Illuminati alongside Professor Xavier, Tony Stark, Black Bolt, Reed Richards, and Namor. Again, Namor keeps popping up with Doctor Strange.
Which tells me that Namor is a big deal, but everyone only includes him because they feel like they have to. He's like that, that extra person at a party where if you don't invite him, it's going to be hell on you, but you still don't like the fact that he's there.
Or, that cousin that you have to invite to the wedding because your parents or your aunt, your grandmother, whatever, would just throw an absolute hissy fit because it's respect and their family and you have to bring them along. Not that I'm speaking from experience. He later renounced the title of Sorcerer Supreme and he gave up the Eye of Agamotto. And so the title passed to Brother Voodoo, who became Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Voodoo.
Man, oh man. He sounds a lot like Shawn Michaels just not wanting to defend the title out to Bret Hart, Lost his smile.
I swear to God, I was just about to say Doctor Strange lost his smile. And, oh, man. Wrestle Special is going to love hearing this. We're just going to plug the crap out of this one on Twitter. So he regained the title after Voodoo sacrificed himself to protect the world, and he joins the New Avengers. And then Captain America is now on the Illuminati, and there's a discussion amongst the various Illuminati members to use the Infinity Gauntlet to save Earth from the incursions, which led to the Infinity Event, or was part of the Infinity Event. All the various multi-dimensions are trying to break into our world, and the Illuminati says, well, maybe we should use the Infinity Gauntlet because that will give us the power to push them all back. And Captain America goes, I thought we shouldn't be using the Infinity Gauntlet for anything because look what happened every other time we use it. And the rest of the Illuminati goes, shut up, Steve. And Doctor Strange wipes his memory. So he has no memory, no recollection of the argument. During Secret Wars, which we referenced last week with Molecule Man, Strange serves as sheriff to God Emperor Doom until Doctor Strange comes across some of the heroes from the 616 and 1610 universes, and rather than kill them as Doom told him to, he whisks them away to another part of the world, and Doom kills him for his insolence. After the universe is restored, Doctor Strange adds an axe to complement his magic skills, because why not? It worked for Gimli. And nice. My axe.
Nice.
But I don't know. It looks cool as hell in the Chris Bachalo run. Also, anything that Chris Bachalo draws is amazing. He's got a very distinct art style that, like, you just look at it and you immediately identify, like, that's Bachalo.
Yeah.
But in any event, it's a cool story. I dig reading it, but I don't know exactly why he started with the axe, but nonetheless, it's cool. So Loki tricks him into handing over his title, possessions, and his home.
Oh, no.
Because Loki feels that Doctor Strange is not doing enough to protect the world from external dangers, which is interesting that Loki feels that someone is not doing enough to protect it. But anyway, he tricks Doctor Strange into giving all this up. So as part of this, Strange decides he's just going to open up a veterinary clinic instead and hangs out with a talking dog.
That's not... He was a surgeon of humans. You can't... That's not how this works.
That's not how any of this works. I get it. But he gave the dog a spell so that people could understand that the dog's barks would be translated into English. And then he opens up a veterinary clinic. Then he allies with the Sentry, and he becomes possessed by the Void in order to defeat Loki. And if you want to know more about the Sentry and the Void, you can listen to the Sentry episode. I find that more and more as we go on, we're able to just call back to prior episodes.
Right.
Because as we're doing more and more characters, obviously they're covered and they all interact.
Right. And we can talk about the Loki episode. I mean, so many.
Yes, we can talk about the Loki episode as well. So in the Damnation event, which I obviously had to bring up because first off, it's an important thing for Doctor Strange, but also part of the Midnight Suns, one of the members of the Midnight Suns is Moon Knight. It's my boy. I got to talk about my boy.
Yeah, we know.
So after Hydra destroyed Las Vegas, because that was part of the whole Captain America's Hydra, Hail Hydra thing, Las Vegas gets destroyed. I don't know why they chose Sin City, but they did. Doctor Strange used magic to revert things to normal, but in so doing, unleashed this hellish hotel on the Strip. It literally pops out of the ground. It's a giant demonic hotel. There's spirits and demons everywhere. And Doctor Strange goes inside, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he battles Mephisto. They have a game of basically demonic blackjack, and Doctor Strange cheats to win. Mephisto finds out that Strange cheats, and he drags him down to hell. He turns Doctor Strange into a Ghost Rider, but Doctor Strange / Ghost Rider Strange, I don't know how you want to call it.
Ghost Strange, Strange Rider.
Strange Rider. I like it. Let's go with that. So Strange Rider manages to escape hell because he tricks Dormammu, and then Strange Rider and the Midnight Suns battle demons, battle Mephisto, and they save Las Vegas.
All right.
And the house wins.
Womp womp.
Moving into the issues, as I said, for a character of Doctor Strange's pedigree, there's so much more that he's been involved in, but we're really not going to get into every single thing. But moving into the issues, the first thing, and this is something that we can tie back into the Tony Stark episode, the arrogance. Doc, I don't want you to necessarily rehash every argument and everything that you made while we were talking about Tony Stark, but the arrogance of the surgeon and then the humbling that comes from the accident and everything as a result of that, if you can just describe or get into that a little bit.
All right. First disclaimer. I am not a surgeon. I am a psychiatrist. Having said that, anyone that has gone to medical school had to do clerkships in the major fields of medicine. So that includes internal medicine, pediatrics, surgery, obstetrics and gynecology, psychiatry, family medicine. In addition to getting exposure to other things like emergency medicine, radiology, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I bring it up is, in my experience, I've met plenty of surgeons. They are wonderful people. They do a lot of good in the world. Many of them have to have a high level of confidence, because if they didn't, their indecisiveness could lead to disastrous results for patients. So in other words, they've had the training, they have the knowledge, they put in a lot of effort to make sure that they get the results that are needed. And if any of that comes into question, then there can be a bit of a backlash. It's not meant in a negative way. It's just making sure that people recognize that they have to be as sharp as possible. No pun intended. Get it? Cutting, surgeon, scalpel.
Womp womp.
Yeah. They have to be as sharp as possible at all times, and they can't let their guard down. If they're talking to a patient and they let them know that they need a procedure right away, they may not say it in the most delicate manner. And sometimes that comes across as being arrogant. If they're talking to other hospital staff, including nurses or other specialties, and they're pointing out that they just want you to see the patient as quick as possible and get this done so that they can do their job, it's not an insult. It's not a matter of them trying to belittle anyone, but sometimes it comes across that way. I don't like to perpetuate stereotypes along those lines, because all the surgeons that I've met, for the most part, as I've already said, are fantastic people. But I can understand why people can interpret some of those things that way. And it is possible for people to step over their boundaries in terms of how they're interacting with others. The character itself for Doctor Strange doesn't go that route at all. He is a jerk. He really, really thinks so highly of himself that he knows that being a surgeon is important, but it's important because he's doing it. He would feel the same way if he was, forget being a surgeon, if he were a cashier. He would basically think that being a cashier was the most important thing in the world. It's him that's implying the importance, not the other way around. And that's why I wanted to make that distinction with the way the character was originally presented. And it puts you in a situation in the comics, as well as in the movie, where you realize this guy is, I guess, good because he's in a position of doing good. But man, oh man, you want to see him brought down a peg. But when it happens, and it happens catastrophically, it's like, oh, I didn't necessarily want it to go that far. In other words, we want someone to be better. We don't want someone to really suffer. And that's what Strange goes through. He suffers. We don't like suffering in the world. We really don't. So for someone like that, even with whatever you want to call it, arrogance, narcissism, whatever, you want them to get to a regular level that we can appreciate. And when it goes further than that, it actually makes us root for them even more, especially when they've shown skill or they've shown talent. Because as what's that Kid Rock song? It ain't bragging if you do it. It ain't bragging if you say it and you back it up, like being cocky. And I don't like that song, but it came to mind. Doctor Strange learns that the hard way. I hope other people don't have to learn it that way, because it's really difficult. But it shows that it doesn't have to go the route of always being such a hard, ingrained personality. You can still be confident. You can still back up what you're saying. You can walk the talk without it having a negative impact. It just took him an unfortunate incident for it to get to that point.
I like the way that you phrased it, in the sense that you said that we like people to be brought down, but we don't want them to suffer. It's this collective societal norm that says that, you're too high, but we don't want you down here. We want you in this middle range. I think that says a lot, and that frankly that could be the topic of a whole separate discussion, that tall poppy syndrome, et cetera, crabs in a bucket mentality. We're not going to get into that. Let's move into something else, and this is something that we alluded to a little bit in the background. the title of Sorcerer Supreme, as I said, this is a big deal. This is a very important thing. It's a prestigious title for all of the magic wielders within the Marvel Universe. Stephen Strange has it, but he loses it frequently. He loses it or he gives it up. And when that happens, the back and forth, the up and down, ties in, I think, a little bit with the arrogance. Even though he is humbled, he still does retain some semblance of that ego. And it kind of leaves him uncertain as to some of his path in life and some of the choices that he's made. So what can you talk about with respect to that and what impact that roller coaster can have on someone, particularly with Stephen's arrogance and ego issues?
Although I'll admit, I'd like to think that I'm the master of my own domain. I control my life. I know there are plenty of things that are outside of my control.
There's a Seinfeld reference there, but I'm going to leave it alone.
I know that I'm not going to consider myself the number one psychiatrist in the world. So I'm not going to say that that's personal experience. But we have plenty of examples, and I know we already used the wrestling example. You can use whatever sports example, grandmasters of chess, world-class poker players. I'm just referencing things that I know. That's all. And I don't know chess, so I don't know even if that counts. But the idea that you are the absolute best at something at such a high level, and then there's two things. Either it gets taken away from you because you lost, meaning someone else has demonstrated that at least at that given time, they have bested you, or you have to forfeit, meaning I know that due to these circumstances, either my ability can't match what it needs to, or I'm simply not in a position to demonstrate my ability at its highest level, and therefore I have to abdicate to someone else. I'm not sure there's much of a difference there other than the fact that you lose to someone means that you have a very specific focus. You can just say, all I have to do is beat that guy or beat that one person, and I will be back to or be considered what I was before. So you have a very clear goal and objective to get to that point again, provided you still have the motivation to do so. On the other hand, a forfeiture, even if you know who quote unquote has the title now, may not be enough of a motivating factor in and of itself, because it creates a false sense of security. Oh, I know I can do it as long as I put in the effort. It wasn't my lack of ability or my shortcoming. It was just the circumstance. And once you externalize that and you don't have that single focus, then distractions can set up, because you can now start creating controversy about it. And I'll go back to the wrestling reference where I mentioned Shawn Michaels losing his smile, hands over Intercontinental title, Dean Douglas. Dean Douglas easily, that's a flash in the pan kind of thing. By the way, the character Shane Douglas, much better. Anyway, ultimately, Razor Ramon gets the Intercontinental title. What does Shawn Michaels do? He randomly shows back up and says, I never lost the title. I'm still, it's me, not him. I'm important. Look at me. That's basically what it came down to. It was, I'm still relevant. And it had nothing to do with whether or not he won or lost. So the motivation is completely different. Am I doing this because I actually want to demonstrate the skill level that I had before? Or am I doing this because I enjoyed being in a situation where people had to provide adulation and I lost that? What's your actual factor? Is it a matter of personal, or basically is it internal or external? That's the bottom line. And so far, with a character like Stephen Strange, the internal do much better than the external. When he goes to being a vet, I'm not questioning his skills as a vet. I don't even know, but of course, because that's ridiculous. You can't just switch over like that. We know that. But that sounded more like, I got to do something, as opposed to saying, okay, what is my true calling now? As opposed to when he's actually in the process and he's losing everything. When he loses the Sanctum Sanctorum and all of that, it's like, wait a minute. This is all ripped from me. I can build it back because that's what I know I can do. I'll find other resources. So it's positive in a way that he's able to reach out to others, of all people reaching out to the Sentry. Okay. But At the same time, until he says, I can do this myself and I'm willing to repeat the steps and the process that I know work for me, he just bounces back and forth. It's only when he actually takes the steps that he knows that work that he sees himself as worthy of being Sorcerer Supreme. And that's something that's pretty powerful. Not everybody can say that. It's one thing to say, I think I can be a champion. It's another thing to say, oh, I know I'm the champion and I'll prove it to you. If he did that more consistently, he probably wouldn't be in so many of these messes. As you said, I know it was, saying defend the title, but it really is like put in the reps, put in the energy. Don't just sit back and rest on your throne and wonder why people are throwing you off.
I like it. I like the analysis. So the last thing that I want to mention, and this is a question you had brought up during our little pre-show chat, is just a simple question. Why doesn't he just go back to being a doctor? And this ties into what you're talking about. If he's riding that roller coaster during those low moments and he wants to sort of find himself and prove himself again, go back to doing what you started with, build that and go from there. It's like, Rocky 3, Eye of the Tiger. You got to break it down. You got too haughty. I'm going to break you down and start with what you started with and go from there. Start off by going back to surgery. I'm sure he can still use the magic to calm his hands and to do sort of, magic assist. It's just low level stuff, but go back to being the surgeon, go back to helping people, and that will give you some sense of self and growth. And then you can build from there. So Doc, why doesn't Doctor Strange just go back to being a surgeon? Is it strictly the hands or is it something else?
I don't think it's the hands, because at this point, there have been situations that he's been in where he's actually been in hand-to-hand combat, and Wong has taught him a few things. So I don't think it's that at all. I think it's more, and I'm not saying this as a negative automatically, I think he's in a different transition in his life. I think he's accepted that for the most part, he's going to be known as a person that deals with magic on a regular basis. My question is, why can't it be both? I'm actually being a bit audacious myself by saying that.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Because you don't automatically lose one and gain something else. That's not how our brains function. I may get rusty in old skills when I don't use them, but that doesn't mean they're completely gone.
I'm just remembering that Simpsons thing where Homer's like, remember when I learned how to drive and forgot your phone number or something like that? What was it?
So I think you flipped it.
Okay.
But that's exactly it. Like, that's not really a 1-to-1 ratio. It doesn't work that way.
Unless you're Taskmaster.
Excellent point. But since Doctor Strange isn't Taskmaster, and he's already shown that he has a high level of intelligence to the point that he's able to understand a lot of things that even most people in the Marvel universe admit they don't understand, and he was already a surgeon and demonstrated that he could understand that, you're telling me you can't bridge that gap? You can't find a way to create something greater than what you originally thought it was when you're already demonstrating that you're the Sorcerer Supreme? That's the part where I think arrogance can get in the way, because it ironically is limiting. You say that you are the best in this one super specific thing, but when you get the opportunity to get taken out of that realm and into a different environment or a different skill set, that's a waste of my time because it's not at that high mountaintop. Like, well, build up the other mountaintop. It's okay. You can have multiple mountaintops. There's no rule in life that says you can't do that. I mean, there's the limit of time, of course. And there's a limit of, physical abilities if we're talking like obviously sports and everything. I'm not saying that someone at age 60 is going to be a champion again when they were age 30 when they first won a victory. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm not trying to say that. But there are plenty of examples of people that basically have to shift careers and do multiple things. Person I'm thinking of right now, Steve Young, San Francisco 49ers. People said when they worked with him, he had his own ego and everything, but he backed it up. They won a championship, Hall of Fame, NFL quarterback. You know what he did when he retired?
I mean, he's an analyst now.
Yeah, I know. But here's something that you don't know that I think is going to be super funny. He's a lawyer. He graduated law school.
Really?
Yeah. And he also had mentioned when he had a surgery one time, he actually asked before he went in, he said, by the way, how long does it take to go through med school and residency? And they described it to him. He said, so I could be an orthopedic surgeon in the span of about 9 years? As if he was really considering it. And he said, well, I always look at the possibilities. So I give him as an example because there's no such thing as automatically limiting yourself to one thing because you're super awesome at it. You can have other things. You can find ways. I like to call it the aggregation of marginal gains. What I mean by that is you may be in the top 5% in the world in one area and the top 20% in another area. But when you put them together, you are 1% unique in that combined skill set. You just have to look for it.
So my life, basically. But in all seriousness, I am a jack of all trades, master of none. How can I put this? My entire life has been about the aggregation of marginal skills. I am perfectly content, just conceptually, with being 80% great at everything. I don't need to be the best. I just need to be in that top 20% of this field, this one, that one, because I feel that, at least to me, the breadth of my knowledge is more important than the depth. Like there are maybe one or two areas in which I'm in that, like that, or I would strive to be in that top 5%. But for me, at least from my perspective, I think because it comes down to time. If I'm going to take, say, 6 months and learn something, now in that 6 months, I could take something in which I'm already pretty solid at and get really, really good at it. Or I can take that same 6 months and take something that I know nothing about and get pretty good at it. The gap between going from 0 to that 80% versus that 80 to the 20, to me, is a better use of my overall time because it's a greater jump and it's an additional skill. And to me, I can cross-pollinate and cross-reference all the skills that I previously learned. So I never feel like I'm totally starting off from square one with anything, because it's just about accumulating and compiling that knowledge. And then, okay, well, this other field in which I have no experience, well, I can look at it from the perspective of someone with these other experiences and skill sets and maybe take something new away from it and apply this new paradigm towards it, versus spending all this time really trying to be the best in the world at this one specific thing. I would much rather be a polymath than the individual specialist of whatever field it could be.
Right. And that is not to bag on individual specialists.
No, absolutely not.
If you are the top of the top, congratulations and enjoy that journey and do everything you can with it. Not knocking that. Just saying that at some point, if it turns out that you go from the 1% to the 5%, that's okay. Try and get back to the 1% if you can. But if you notice that is getting more and more difficult as time goes on, look at other areas, see if you can get into that 20%. It's okay. It's cool to do that. And by the way, this whole aggregation of marginal gains thing, you know who I got that from? Scott Adams. That's the second reference I've been able to get in the span of 30-something episodes. I got to do a better job. Shout out to Scott Adams. And I'm not talking politics, people, because I've heard things, but that's irrelevant. You know, if you look at Dilbert's Guide to Life, if you look at God's Debris, those two books alone have more value than you realize. And you think it's just comics.
Well, I think the very nature of this show disproves the notion that it's just comics, because we've been talking about some very important things here. We've had some very serious discussions, and we may use the comics to broach the subjects, but we talk about some serious stuff here on the show. And then, of course, we also throw in some wrestling and, dick jokes and other things of that nature. So we got to have some fun with it. It's not totally, we're not serious people. We're not Norman Osborn, serious business.
Or Wilson Fisk, serious business.
Yes. Well, Wilson Fisk is going to be serious business when we get to him in a couple of weeks. So moving into treatment in universe. Now, here's a guy who has seen some stuff, and he's a mystical, magical user. And again, as we say, whenever we do these heroes, how do you address their underlying issues without completely negating the spark and the fire that gives them the drive to be the hero?
Doctor Strange can go to hell.
He's literally been there on numerous occasions.
Exactly. And that's where I think I'd need to start, because that seems to be the one area where he feels vulnerable. I'm not saying that I want to deal with Mephisto or Dormammu or any of the other, horrific beings that would be in those areas, but I do want him to feel like he needs the assistance, because otherwise he always has an answer. And that's okay. I'm glad that he's able to help so many people in his way. But in order for him to grow and to change, to see things in a different light, he's going to have to feel the heat. Yes, I did make that pun. I'm sorry. But the point still stands. I'm sure he has enough knowledge of the dark arts to protect us while we're doing the session. But also, I want to know, what is it that you're most afraid of right now? What do you think the fail points are in your system? Is there something that you've tried that hasn't worked recently? And do you think that's going to happen again? Because fear, anxiety, or have you just recently lost the title of Sorcerer Supreme again? Is there any depression there? Just to get the idea of what he's looking at from vulnerability perspective. Without that, I won't be able to do anything. And it also means I'm going to probably be in a lot of danger, but so be it. If that's going to help him and ultimately allow him to save us, then I'm willing to take that chance.
Interesting. All right. It's a hellish way to go, but if it works out in the long run, I hope it pays off. Out of universe, here I think, magic aside, we've got a arrogant former surgeon who reached great acclaim in another field and, but has some issues with some interpersonal relationships. And, that's something that we never really discussed, or we haven't really gotten into, the fact that Strange is basically alone. He was with Clea for a while, but aside from that, Strange has never really had romantic relationships.
Well, I was going to say, once again, when it comes to psychology or psychiatry, it's a problem if it's creating a problem. So at least for the most part, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying for the most part, it's pushed to the background. So I'm not sure that it's meant to be a focus.
No, that's fair. So, and out of universe, Doctor Strange, what would your tactics be with this person?
Okay. I would start similarly to what I had said with Tony Stark, in the sense that you want the person to feel comfortable with the idea that they can have failures, they can make mistakes, and it's not the end of the world. Or they can have bad things happen to them, and they don't have to automatically assume that it's their fault because they've always done everything so great. And the second that one thing goes wrong, that means that everything is a catastrophe. You don't want them catastrophizing. You have to recognize that, for example, I can relate it back to a specific patient that I'm thinking of that was a surgeon, and that surgeon tried to eviscerate himself. I'm serious. Took a knife.
Wow.
A surgeon took a knife to his abdomen and went to town. Yeah, survived, clearly. So that person is pointing out, hey, I already have the knowledge of how I could do this, and I failed. So now you don't just have whatever the impetus was for them to try and commit suicide. You also have the idea that, wow, I tried that, and despite how good I am, I messed it up. That's a double whammy. So from that standpoint, it becomes a balancing act, because I have to let that person know how much of that was in your control. How many people do self-surgery, whether it was to live or to die? I mean, that's not a common practice. So you are in uncharted territory. And if you want to look it up, there is a surgeon that I believe was stuck in Antarctica or some like very remote area, and did an appendectomy on himself and survive, like, to save his life, save his own life. I think it was a Russian surgeon, something like that. It's easily researched online, but I admit I'm digressing a little bit, but just pointing out it's impossible to do certain things consistently because they're not expected of anyone. But then he brought it back to, but wait a minute, I'm still a surgeon. how do I go back to this? This is a shameful thing that I've done to try and take my own life. I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to save lives, and I almost cost my own. To which the response that I gave was, well, right now you're thinking of it as a personal problem. I'm looking at it as a severe illness that needs to be addressed so that you can get back to doing what you do well. I depersonalized it, which is something that I don't often recommend, because I think when something is personal, it means that it's something that a person is going to act. It's actionable. It's something that somebody wants to do. But in this case, leaving it personal meant that this person was going to walk that path pretty much alone. And that's a horrible idea. So I depersonalized it for this particular instance because I thought the idea would be, let me do my job as the doctor. So maybe I did bring it down a peg a little bit, saying surgery may be your field, but psychiatry is mine. Let me do my part in this, and you get back to doing your part. But you gotta let me. Just let me do this job. Because if you trust that someone else can do a job well other than you, even when it's not in your particular field, that will allow you to get better results. And breaking it down that way, I definitely saw a change in how he responded to treatment over the next few days. And I'll admit, because it was a hospital situation, I didn't have direct outpatient follow-up. So I can't tell you for sure what the outcome was. That's not really my point. My point is I gave him that opportunity. And I hope that he made the best of it.
Well, you have to do what works best in that particular situation. And that's why you're a damn good doctor, because you understand that not every scenario is going to require the exact same tactics that you said yourself. Normally you personalize it. Here you had to depersonalize it. Sometimes you have to go with the opposite just because you think that, whatever your initial thing is going to be isn't going to have an effect. So that's a sign of a good doctor and just someone who's skilled at their job in general, that you not just try to immediately shove the square peg into the round hole.
Yeah. Know all the proper procedures and processes for things that usually work, as well as the times where they may not.
Exactly. But that works for out of universe, or that stuff was working for out of universe. Let's find out what happens, though, when we get Dr. Stephen Strange on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Dr. Strange. I'm Dr. Issues.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
So, what can I help you with today?
Well, this may sound like an odd request, but apparently I do need someone of your stature to, I guess, vouch for me after all this time.
I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, when you've been dealing with all the dark arts and creatures from hell and some of the most powerful beings in all of existence, you tend to forget the basics. I need to brush up.
Excuse me?
Well, you are a board-certified physician, correct?
Yes, but I'm a psychiatrist. You are a surgeon.
The specialty is trivial, although it would help me if you could do this in New York. I'd like to maintain the Sanctum Sanctorum as my primary residence.
Are you asking me to be a glorified personal reference? I thought you were here as a patient.
I am. This has been weighing on my mind for quite some time now. I thought it best to address both issues simultaneously, if you'll pardon the pun.
Unfortunately, there's a conflict of interest. I can't treat you as a patient and provide you a reference as a colleague. I mean, the HIPAA violations alone would...
Do you think anyone on the astral plane cares one iota about HIPAA? I mean, that's preposterous.
Dr. Stephen, I'm not on the astral plane, and also, in order to be a reference, I'd have to see you practice. You haven't done that in years. I mean, there's some excellent training programs that I could connect you with.
Perhaps if you give me their names, I can reference them with the Book of Ashanti to complete this recertification within a matter of moments.
I need to inform you that modern medicine doesn't reference magic as a viable source of information. Is there anything I can help you with from a psychiatric standpoint?
Are you sure you're not able to conjure up assistance with the recertification?
No. And the only thing I'll be able to attest to is whether you're of sound mind at this point.
Oh. I guess that's why you keep asking me about my mind.
Yes. Now, is there something you'd like to talk about that troubles you?
Yes.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. What can I help you with?
My dog died.
Your dog died?
Yeah. His name was Bats. He was a basset hound, a fine companion.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry to hear that.
And he spoke English.
I can't believe I'm going to ask this, but did he have any last words?
Yeah, he told me not to let anyone hurt my friends.
Wow, that actually sounds like a wise hound. Well, how did you cope with the grief?
Well, Loki brought him back to me as a ghost.
Oh, Loki. Wait, he's still with you then?
Well, in spirit, yes, but I kind of miss having him sit with me on the couch.
Well, have you at least taken your dog's advice to heart?
I do the best I can. I still fight battles to protect the Earth and the astral plane from interference. But, I'm also interested in helping save lives on a smaller scale, which is why I was asking for your help.
Oh, that makes so much more sense. All right, thank you. What I originally said still stands, but if anyone is willing to ask me about your motivations, I could definitely say they're genuine. You know what, by the way, I don't think there's any regulatory board for this, but have you ever actually used magic during surgery?
Oh, certainly. If I need to stabilize an instrument or reach something beyond the scope of my nurses or assistants, I've used magic. I avail myself of all the tools at my disposal.
Ah. You know what, Dr. Strange, I think you just created a new subspecialty. And if you do get your certification back, I'll be your first fellow.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate your willingness to assist. Now, do you happen to know any astral veterinarians?
Oh.
So, did he need help with his dog or going back to work?
Yes.
Huh. And the dog spoke English?
Yes. Well, the dog was barking, but it was translated to English.
Uh-huh. That's creepy as hell.
Well, I mean, is it really worse than having to fight demons and other, near satanic things?
No, I mean, it's not as bad as that, but I'm telling you, if my cat started talking to me, I would definitely get the hell out of the house.
And I'd hope you'd call me and go to your nearest hospital and not turn into Son of Sam.
I call the Ghostbusters first, but then I call you.
Thanks.
Well, that's what they're there for, right? But I call the original Ghostbusters, not the women. Not because they're women, but because it was just generally not a funny movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had to clarify. It's not for misogynistic purposes. It just wasn't a funny movie.
And I can't comment because I never saw that movie.
Save yourself.
Wow.
I saw it in theaters. Oh, it was a waste of money.
Whoa. Okay.
That's going to do it for this week. You can find all of our previous episodes, of which we've referenced several. I think this week we referenced Loki, Moon Knight, Sentry. I think that was it.
Okay.
But again, this is issue number 31 for us. And you can find all of our previous episodes on our website, capesonthecouch.live. And we're distributed through the Libsyn Network. And you can find us on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And if you have a platform that you listen to us on in which you can leave a rating and review, please do so. We like to read our reviews of our shows. This one's from Nick. It's called Mint Condition. This is an awesome and unique take on the comic book world in a realm where almost everything has that been there and done that feel. It's refreshing to find a regular discussion that is novel as it is entertaining. When you can meld a near encyclopedic pop culture mind with an expertly trained practicing professional and then apply that to some of the most complex characters to grace the funny books, you get a highly entertaining podcast that leaves you wondering which cape will be on the couch next. So thank you for those wonderful words, Nick. We hope you're still listening and we appreciate your support. And again, to all of the rest of our listeners, if you like our show, please like, subscribe, rate, review. You can share it on Twitter. We have a very active Twitter account, Capes on the Couch. Doc and I both have our own individual Twitter accounts, Anthony Sitko and Doc Issues. We have a Facebook page. You can email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. And we've got our Patreon. You can subscribe at the $1, $3, $5, and $10 levels. All the details are at patreon.com/Capes on the Couch. So as we said at the top of the show, next week we're taking a break, but then the following week we are coming back and we're doing our crossover episode with Popcorn Psychology. So we've got 2 weeks to prep for that one. That one's going to be amazing, and it's going to be about the Incredible Hulk. Then we're going to come back and right as the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie comes out, we're going to do Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. And then we're going to move on to Tom King's epic run. Well, just the character in general, but referencing Tom King's amazing run on Mr. Miracle, because Christmas Miracle. He's dressed in green and red, and so it all sort of matches with the holidays, even if the subject matter has nothing to do with Christmas whatsoever. Only because, Santa Claus or Krampus don't really have comic books for us to reference for the show. So, Doc, you got anything you want to add before we leave?
Our best sources of magic are our own perception of reality and our imaginations.
Ooh, I like that. Deep and philosophical and inspiring, if you will.
Hey, it happens once in a while.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's a good note to leave us on. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitka. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.